Hello, my name is Caroline McEwen, and I'm with the Presbyterian Advocacy Coalition. This video is meant to assist pastors and elders in the Presbyterian churches who are working through how they can help abuse victims. If you are here and you're listening to this, I'm assuming that is a goal that you have to protect people in your congregation and to learn how to better assist. So let's get into it. The topic today particularly is around protection orders, what they are, um, what they mean, who can get them, how you can help people to get them, and then also how you navigate around them in a church setting, which is sometimes a challenge for people. Today, we're going to go through a few disclaimers before we get started, and then we're going to just talk about what a protection order is, who can file for protection orders, how you can assist with filing a protection order, and then also how to abide by protection orders and how this affects your church. And then we're going to go over a few frequently asked questions right at the end. Okay, the disclaimer at the beginning here, the Presbyterian Advocacy Coalition is not a law firm. This information is distributed strictly for general information. It's not a substitute for legal counsel. So we encourage people to consult a lawyer, especially if you have a particular case in your church right now. And if you have a need for legal advice, we cannot provide that for you. And please reach out to someone, especially locally, because laws do vary from state to state. So I'm giving a general idea. A lot of my information is based on the situation in Maine. That's where I have the most experience and knowledge. And generally, a lot of the same principles apply across the states, but there are always variations in the law, as we all know. First of all, what is a protection order? It is that it orders someone, and it's usually a family member or romantic partner, to stop abusing and harassing or intimidating their victim and to stay away from their home or place of employment. This is meant for domestic violence situations. There are a few other cases in which it may apply as well, but generally speaking, it's meant to be something in which people are of the same household or the same family. We can imagine a situation where someone calls the police, for example, and says, "Hey, my husband is out on the porch." Obviously, that's not something that people normally call the police about. But if the husband has been known to be very violent, has made threats that they're going to shoot this person, then obviously that would be a very scary situation. So the law then established this protection order, which is to say that you have presented enough evidence to convince a judge that this person is a threat to you. They are told to stay away from you, to stop harassing, intimidating you, and the goal for this is to make it easier for law enforcement to arrest someone for abuse, threats, and harassment, to try to prevent some of this from happening again and again. It may also order weapons removed from the home. Sometimes there are other restrictions added to it as well. So protection orders are generally only granted for recent physical or sexual abuse or threats of harm. You can't get one based on things that happened 10 years ago. It has to be an immediate threat. And it also has to be something usually pretty serious. Just simply, he calls me names. He doesn't come home when he says he will, even that he's having an affair. These are not going to be enough for a protection order. There's this myth out there that protection orders are really easy to get. And that's actually not true. It's a pretty high standard they have to meet in showing that there is recent physical or sexual assault or abuse and or threats of harm. And these threats of harm have to be serious: threats of homicide, threats to hurt your loved ones or your pets. Suicide threats can also be involved in this. A lot of people don't realize that. And it has to be more than someone just saying, "Hey, I'm depressed and I feel like I need help. I'm thinking of hurting myself." We're talking more where someone says, "If you leave me, I'll kill myself." Those things would meet that standard of a suicide threat and would qualify someone for a protection order. You can check your state statute for more details. I'm not going to get into that a lot. Usually, just Googling statute for domestic violence protection order, whatever your state is, will do it. And you can bring up the law and read over the specifics for it if you would like to do that. Who can get a protection order? As we've mentioned, victims of domestic violence usually has to be against a family member. It can't just be against a neighbor that you've never been involved in with any kind of relationship and they come over and punch you in the face. That's not something that would qualify you for a protection order. That may qualify for other things, but not for a protection order. Um, there's usually a couple of exceptions where stalking and sexual assault, occasionally a few other things can also be considered for a protection order because what we came up with is some situations in which maybe somebody had never been involved in a relationship with someone, just met this person in a class at school, and now they're following you everywhere, making threats. If they're stalking someone like that, that can also qualify them for a protection order. That's one of the exceptions where it doesn't have to be a family member. And the same with sexual assault. When they're sexually assaulted by somebody, even if it's not a family member, they can get a protection order for that as well. Okay, how can you help an abuse victim file for an order of protection? And I do get this question a fair amount from pastors. Um, they want to help this person. They feel that order of protection may be helpful to them, but say, listen, nobody taught me to do this in seminary. Um, and I don't know how to go about it. I strongly recommend that you contact your local domestic violence resource center for details about your area. They often can provide someone to go to the courthouse with the victim to help them apply for this. You can often just simply give them a referral, help them reach out to their local domestic violence resource center, let the domestic violence resource center take it from there. They know all about what the laws are for your area. They know how to help someone through the process. However, not all areas have equal access to domestic violence resource centers, and some domestic violence resource centers are really overrun and not able to take a lot of new clients. If that happens and it's down to you to help this person, here's the next one. How can you help? All help must be at the decision of the victim. This is really important. You cannot file for protection order unless the victim wants to do that. And sometimes the victim may have their reasons for not doing that. It may be that they feel like that it would escalate the situation too much. They don't know if what now is just a few threats may turn into murder if they try to go to court about it. There can be all kinds of concerns that they have, but well, whatever their reasons are, they need to be the one who makes that decision to say, yes, I need to go forward with this protection order. Certainly something you can talk to them about, see if that's something they're open to. And if they are, then you can move on to the next thing, which is things that are often helpful. You can assist the victim with calling local domestic violence services, as we said. You can provide them transportation to the courthouse. This often is a real problem for victims of domestic abuse. Often they are without transportation. Their abuser may not allow them to have a car, may have broken their car or taken their keys. So for whatever reason they have, they may just not have transportation to get there. So providing them that transportation can be very helpful and providing emotional support for the process. This is a really hard thing for people to do when they're in a domestic violence situation. They love this person, devoted their life to this person, thought they were going to be together forever. And now something terrible has happened. They may have been strangled, thrown against the wall, threatened, and maybe they tried to work through it over and over again. Now they're finally at the point where they say, I'm afraid that he's going to kill me. And now is the point where they're at their lowest. Sometimes they're in the hospital, sometimes he's been arrested, and now they have to navigate this legal system as well. And people, when they have to go through this, they tell me, I just don't know how I'm going to do it. I'm having to deal with all of these things that are happening and medical and bills and things from his attack, and he's in jail, and there's the criminal case for that. And now on top of that, I have to figure out how to file this. So a lot of emotional support for this, even if you yourself don't understand the process very well. helping them maybe to get connected to a counselor, support group. Sometimes I've seen churches send one of the elders to court with them just to make sure they didn't have to go alone. Whatever you can do to support them, it would be very helpful. Sometimes there are legal fees involved, and if you can help with that, I realize not all churches are in a position to help, but that could be very helpful for someone to at least be able to get a legal consultation, even if they can't afford complete legal representation. Help the victim to develop a safety plan. Protection order often comes a lot of risk, especially what you do is you file it first and then you have to come back to the courthouse for a court date to prove your case. And the abuser may really be attempting to not allow them to get to the courthouse for that court date. Sometimes they attack them, sometimes they'll stalk them. There can be all kinds of things that happen, especially in that period between the time when they file it and the time when they're able to get to the hearing. So, having a safety plan, is there a place they can stay that the abuser doesn't know where to find them? Or security cameras, or whatever it is that can make them feel safer to go through this process would be very helpful. Connecting the victim with us. We can often provide some information, some support, and you're more than welcome to reach out to us and make that referral. Okay, so let's say that your parishioner now has a protection order, or even just that they turn up with them and you weren't expecting it. Maybe you weren't even aware there were marriage issues, and now all of a sudden there's a protection order. How do you go about navigating this in your church? And this can be quite tricky. The first thing here is obey the court orders. Protection orders usually prohibit all contact between the victim and the abuser, sometimes with exceptions for matters related to children or to arrange transfer of property. And this is all contact, unless there's some exception in there for those things. But even then, it's only for those things related to children or transfer of property. I worked with a judge once who used to tell abusers when he was issuing these protection orders, you are not to call her. You are not to text her. You are not to send her Facebook messages. You are not to leave messages on her phone. You are not to send messages with someone else to give to her. You are not to send the carrier pigeon or smoke signals. If you can think of a way to contact her, it is illegal. You are not to do that. You are not allowed to contact her anymore, except sometimes for related to children or property. And that's really important for churches to know as well. I've seen a number of cases where churches attempt to reconcile the couple by bringing messages between them, coming to the wife and saying, he says he still loves you. That is illegal and he can be arrested for that. And so it won't necessarily get you in trouble, but it is a violation of the court order and he could be arrested for that. And protection orders usually prohibit the abuser from approaching the victim or being near the victim's home or place of employment. If he is prohibited from going to the home, he cannot go to the home. You cannot tell the wife you must allow him to visit in your home or arrange meetings and with her, with him together, that kind of thing. That's forbidden by the protection order. Please make sure you keep that in mind. I can't tell you how many times I've seen victims who have protection orders being then ordered by their session to do things that are in violation of the protection order and can result in someone getting arrested. Okay, some frequently asked questions to wrap up. This is one I've already mentioned. Can I take messages between the husband and wife? No. Protection orders usually prohibit indirect contact. This includes messages between the victim and the abuser being carried by a third party. Should I encourage the parties to confront each other in a safe environment? Again, sometimes well meaning pastors saying, you should bring charges against him in the church and we can have the church trial, put him on trial in the church and see if we can excommunicate him. I don't really know what the answer is. If that's what you're trying to do, is to bring justice in the church courts, but that is illegal. She is not allowed to do that. And if she does that, then uh, that could actually threaten her situation. He could take that to the court and say she's trying to trap me into talking to her. It could also end in him getting arrested for responding to it, if he does respond to it. And this could even be something in which I could see the church being held legally responsible. I don't know if I've ever witnessed that personally, where a church has been held legally responsible for an outcome. But if, for example, someone was arrested as a result of the church's interference, the possibility that they could then sue the church, I wouldn't put it out of the realm of possibility if the church was the one who forced that on them and made that contact. Can the abuser still attend church with the victim? This one is hard for pastors because often the couple was attending church together, and the church can now sometimes become a battleground. They both want to keep attending there. And so this is difficult because protection orders usually don't say whether the abuser has to stay away from the church. They will say he has to stay away from the home and the place of business and school if the victim is in school, but it doesn't mention churches. Sometimes pastors have taken that and said he can still go to church with her then. They may not be able to talk to her, but he can still be here. That one, definitely, I would say seek legal counsel on that. It's still risky. There usually are rules about approaching her within a certain proximity, which can be difficult to maintain in a church. So I would say definitely get some legal advice if that's a situation. Most of the time, uh, one or the other of them does leave. And so it's less problematic as far as enforcing the protection order. There may be other things that you need to deal with in the aftermath of that, but as a protection order itself, if if only one of them is there, you're not in any bad situation. If both of them are there, that could end up crossing the line with the protection order. So protect the victim. This is important. Have a safety plan. If you are concerned about him showing up at the church and the victim feels that is very unsafe, sometimes I've known churches to set someone near the doors. They can welcome people in at the same time, be looking to see if the person is arriving who should not be arriving. You can put a trespass order on someone if they have been told not to attend and they are still showing up. Keep any evidence of violations of the protection order. If the abuser is calling you and saying, will you give this message to her? That is a violation of the order. They are asking you to violate the order. Definitely keep evidence that may become important in court. So don't disclose confidential addresses or phone numbers. If the victim has a confidential address where the abuser does not know where they are, make sure they don't find out about it from you. I have had that happen more than once where the victim went to stay with a friend and it actually ended up being someone from church that told the abuser then where they were. And then that made that an unsafe place and they had to look elsewhere and move somewhere else. Try not to let that information come from you. Don't attempt to reconcile the parties. We've talked about that's illegal in the case where there's a protection order in place. Make sure the victim has transportation to court. We've mentioned that they need to get to court in order to attend these hearings. It's important that some assistance is offered them if they don't have that. And then I would recommend having a copy of the protection order on hand in case there's an incident. Protection orders are supposed to go to the police. The police are supposed to have a copy of it and be able to access it in case there's an incident, but that doesn't always happen. So every once in a while, we see a situation where there is an incident, someone is attacked, threatened, or just shows up somewhere they're not supposed to be. And the police show up and they don't have them in their system. There's nothing that says in the system that they have a protection order. It would be good to have that on hand to make sure that you have that to show the police and also maybe to look it over yourself to know exactly what the rules are about that particular protection order because they can vary not just state to state, but even case to case. Sometimes certain cases, they have different things ordered. They may be allowed certain visits or to be able to go to collect their belongings or what have you, but it would be good for you to know exactly what those rules are. Okay. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. Realize it's a real quick overview. It can only be a quick overview when we can't really offer legal counsel, just general information. But if you have more questions on general information, feel free to reach out to us. If there's something you feel like you would love to see addressed in one of our videos, then also feel free to reach out to us. www.presbyterianadvocacycoalition.org. That's our website, and contact information is on there, of course. And also, if you do have questions about your particular case and the law in your state and you need legal advice, please do reach out to an attorney for help with that situation. That's all today. And thank you so much for joining.